Welcome back to my garage. The dyno testing you're about to see was done last week, and this is next week. And I've stumbled across a big compound, or a tiny error, a tiny stupid error that it caused like a big compound problem. And I'll show you that later. I'll show you later. A longer 13mm stinger. Not very uplifting results so far. Seems to not like that at all, which is odd, because a 13mm stinger of that short length shouldn't be too bad for the power we're seeing here. So obviously far too restrictive, and that could mean that there's like 30 horsepower amount of gases passing through. Well, not 30, but high horsepower amount of gases passing through, but they're not contributing to power, unburnt or like bad mix, something like that. Doesn't seem, I don't think that's a plausible explanation, but let's just remove the stinger altogether. Now we've tried a tighter one. Now let's try a less tight stinger, roughly 22mm stinger, which is just far too large, but let's see what happens. Now we're seeing actually more horsepower than ever. Exhaust gas temperature is really low because we're running so much timing, and there could also be because there's lots of unburnt fuel in that duct, because the EGT sensor is sitting at the duct exit. But then again, our runs with the normal stinger, or the 16mm stinger, is much higher temperature, still low. Should pull out timing from 15,000 and see what happens, because it really falls off at around 15,000. Let's drop power quickly and see if it makes a difference. So 10 degrees at 18,000. Now 16 should be 20, and 15 is 15 degrees. Now 17 is 15 degrees. So let's try that and see if it makes a difference. Could be the carb is super rich. It's definitely rich on all throttle positions except full throttle now. And now we actually lost power. What's weird is how we lost power all the way from like throughout the range. And so just by changing timing up high, we lost power all over, which is so probably not the timing's fault. It's probably, I think the hopelessly rich like low throttle position, or I need to lower the needle in the car and Let's see what happens after that. You might notice I've trimmed my beard, and that's for the occasion of thanking NordVPN, the longest time supporter of this channel, for sponsoring this video. As you should know by now, NordVPN creates an encrypted tunnel for your data to travel in, so no one can spy on it and steal that data. NordVPN is primarily to keep you safe while browsing the internet, but I usually focus on how I use NordVPN to pretend to be from somewhere else than where I'm at, and that's to be able to watch movies and play games and order cheap tickets like plane tickets and stuff, like pretend to be from a low-cost country and order tickets from there, or watch movies that aren't available in Europe but in the United States and vice versa. Like last time when I wanted to watch the Heartworm Highways, I think it's called. That movie, and it's not available in Europe, but it's available in America, and even the services having it available weren't available in Europe, but I managed to watch it even though I really couldn't, because I'm not from America, I'm not in America, I'm in Norway. And I'll show you. This is what I do. I'm currently in Norway, here, and what I do is I choose like Toronto, Buffalo, connect to Toronto, and now the internet thinks I'm from the United States, from Toronto, or Buffalo. Buffalo, I'm from Buffalo. So that's a really neat side effect of using NordVPN. But today I want to focus on threat protection. Threat protection protects you from threats like malware and trackers, and it scans your files when you download them to check for malware and stuff like that. And also it blocks trackers and intrusive ads and keeps you from landing on like malware sites, dangerous sites where you will be infected by stuff like that. And threat protection works even though you're not connected to the VPN service. So you don't have to, if you don't want to run through a VPN, through the NordVPN VPN service, you're still protected by threat protection. Head to NordVPN/2strokestuffing for a great deal. And it's risk-free thanks to their 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you, NordVPN. The needle is sitting at the leanest position, which means we will need a leaner needle. See if there's any markings on this needle. There's not. I'm replacing the stock unmarked needle with a JJS needle, which is the needle with the fattest tip I've got. And also it's fat up here, but it's that fat tip and a relatively fat taper I'm after. It's obvious that the smaller stinger created too much pressure in the pipe because there's it pushed out a bunch of black goo around the header to cylinder junction, and also the old EGT probe was pushed out. Got a sticky throttle situation here. Our problem isn't the spring, but the needle is I chose a fatter needle, and it's actually a slight press fit into the, like the last little bit here is a slight press fit into the hole. So obviously not usable. So we'll have to find the next size down in thickness here, and that should work. I'm gonna replace this with a JJQ needle. JJQ needle, 0.02 millimeters thinner up here. Let's see if that's enough. Want it a little rich at idle so that it doesn't really idle, but to be safe. Okay, let's try that again. Leaner needle. Nothing much happened there, but that's not a surprise. Pretty much the same as the previous run, because ignition timing and the main jet is the same size. We gain power at a little bit of power between 11,000 and 14,000 though. But pretty much the same, I think, and it acts like it wants more timing. That bluish purple, the blue run there is that was more timing. But I think actually it acts like it wants more timing because it's running too rich. I think now maybe. We'll see. I went from 135 to a 140 jet. Let's go down to 130. So our baseline was 135. Now let's try 130. The same timing as we're currently at, and see what happens. There's pretty much no difference at all. Revving less with a smaller jet, which is weird, but then probably not really yet again. There's something with the cylinder filling, or maybe with the cylinder, the purity of the fresh mix, if it's mixed with the exhaust gases, because it's not, if there's proper cylinder filling, you can't mess around with timing and jetting in this fashion without burning things. And EGT is like the highest EGT we've seen has been a little bit over 400 degrees Celsius, which is not a lot. And that highest power run peaked at 336, which is like half of what is safe. 25 degrees of ignition timing at peak power is but I don't think it's hopelessly rich. I think it's hopelessly not filling the cylinder, is what I think. So we'll have to figure out why that is. I'll sleep on it, and tomorrow we're back in business. And my neighbors are probably glad I'm aborting the dyno tuning now. I think we're dealing with terrible cylinder filling. Just terrible cylinder filling. And I think the reason might be that the exhaust is sucking hard, like, whilst the mega huge transfers are just, and so everything entering the cylinder is just sucked out of the exhaust, and what's left is just like a mix of spent gases and not much of it either. Just a mix of a little bit spent gases and a little bit of fresh mix, and no pressure, no density at all. As you can give it lots and lots of timing, and that helps, but it doesn't die. It doesn't start detonating, even though I'm running 115 leaded race fuel. But like, you wouldn't. It shouldn't be possible to run like 25 degrees of timing at peak power and try 30 degrees and that's no problem. Should not be possible. And there should not be, like, it didn't want to run with the 13mm Stinger. But if it was really just producing 10 horsepower, then a 13mm Stinger of this length wouldn't be a problem. Oh, sorry. So, and also the EGT temperatures being so low. So this is the stuffer I ran earlier, and this has these protrusions into the ports, making them smaller. So this is the one I used with testing with a reed valve, but at that point we had multiple other issues. Now we seem to not experience so much issues anymore. So I printed two. I screwed up with some, like, there's still remainders of the cutout for the reed valve in this one, and I forgot to remodel it. So this one is tailored for the rotary valve intake with no artifacts from the reed intake. So there's a hole here for the rotary valve, and there's no hole here for the reed valve. It'll take up some volume. It'll bring the crankcase compression ratio down from 125 to 1 to 130 to 1. So 1.3 to 1, which is read territory and is exactly the same ratio as I ran in my in the old engine. So now we're even closer to the old engine. And the IAME cylinder, IAME, I'm not sure how you pronounce that in English. It's Italian. That cylinder has much narrower ports, so comparable to what the cylinder will look like with these in. Let's pull the cylinder and get this installed and see if the engine starts behaving more like normal behavior. So it wants normal timing and maybe it even ceases like they normally do. I've noticed that there's been grooves worn into or spark eroded into the top of the plug, so now the plug cap is not sitting tight on it anymore. Like so. I'm going to replace the cap with this one. I haven't got a resistor cap with this kind of... well, actually I've got one, but it's broken, so I haven't got one. I'm going to replace the plug with this solid post Emot Racing Denso plug. Hopefully there won't be interference issues with the ignition because of this. I ran it out of fuel again. Just comparing with one of the runs yesterday, and it's not even the best run. And the stuffer basically halved power, even worse than half power. There's a 22mm stinger at the moment. I'm gonna mount back the 16mm restriction thing and see what happens. Was acting more eager to rev, but no difference in power really. Well, maybe half a horsepower more, but still around 5.5 horsepower. There really can't be the velocity in the transfers that is the problem, nor the case volume, which actually before the stuffer should be perfect for a rotary valve. What's left now? The exhaust system is, even though there's that like that bung in the belly, like it can't be, that can't make that huge of a difference. It can't interfere that much with the waves. There has to be some clues in why it runs much worse now with the lower case volume and the tighter transfers. Like the clue can't be that the volume is not large enough. I don't think so. And it can't be that the transfers are not large enough. Let's try this Oco carb instead, 24mm versus the PWK 30mm clone. This is what I ran most of the time on that old engine, and it worked fine, but we had some fuel foaming issues. We got our revs back, but not the power. And it's running hopelessly rich, this carb, with the 130 jet, because it's smaller, so harder, more signal at the needle. But well, actually, we'll have to try it without the stuffer and see. Maybe the carb has been a problem all the time and all along, and suddenly something will happen tomorrow. There's an answer to our problem somewhere in here. Like this should be a clue to what's going on. So the stuffer did not help at all. It halved power, made case volume much smaller than what's known to be optimal for a rotary valve. So that part should be a given, should be, like, who knows. It also tells us that high velocity in the transfers is is not the solution. Someone left a comment saying I should remodel everything in Emot now, and I haven't actually modeled the engine in Emot after all these modifications, and the last time I really made a proper model of it was when I designed it with the resonance intake and all that. So and that should give us some clues. We're gonna pull out the stuffer and we're gonna see if we can get that 24mm OCO carb tuned, the known good carb. And if suddenly that gives us 20 horsepower or something, then we're good. If not, we'll remodel the whole engine and see if we can find the bottleneck. Because everything is very much close to normal now. So that's why it's so perplexing that it doesn't make any more power than this, and you can run so much timing and all that stuff. It's because everything is so normal now. It might be that just the slight, like my A transfers being a little bit wider and aimed a little bit more towards the rear. Maybe that's just screwing everything. Could be, it could be. Looking promising, but I could see the dyno disconnecting, and that's interference from that no resistor spark plug cap, so we'll have to replace that with something else. Let's use this one. I had to pinch it with because it's a little bit loose, the connection or the interface between the plug and the cap is a little bit loose. I pinched it with a pair of pliers, so hopefully that gives us a good enough connection. Somewhere around 7 horsepower, but it's misfiring badly, and that could be timing, could be fueling. We're back to the baseline timing numbers now. 15 degrees at 15,000. Let's just keep it rich and add some more timing and see what happens. So 20 degrees at 15,000. See how the added timing gained us power from 12,000 and upwards, and it gained us about 1,000 more RPM. I'm gonna add more timing up high here and see how it behaves. Let's try that. That didn't make much of a difference at all. That's better. We're back to about 11 horsepower and we gained about 1,000 RPM. It's weird how it says it cuts out here, but I can clearly see like 17,000 plus during the runs, but so I'm not quite sure what's going on with this. Anyways, let's try 115 and see what happens. Maybe half a horsepower gain there, and pretty much the same. Power was consistently rising with temperature. You see the most powerful run was the last one. Really, I'm perplexed about this. How I know the runs don't end at 16,000. They end at over 17. There's something going on here. 17,000 RPM at 15,000 RPM. There's something wrong here. I've done something wrong. Let's try to lock the gear ratio. It shouldn't be necessary. no more power, but at least now the readings are correct here. So peak power is sitting at 16,000 RPM, not 14.5. So a bunch of runs now, and pretty inconsistent, pretty much just hovering around the same numbers. Nothing to write home about, really. Better than in many years, actually, for this experimental engine. And now we gotta figure out what's wrong. So that big compound error. I talked for so long now, and I didn't press record. So here we go again. So my process when I'm designing an expansion chamber for my two-stroke engines goes like this. I start off with the total exhaust port area, and I create a duct, and at the exit I have it being just the blowdown area, and that usually corresponds to about 0.75, 0.8 millimeters, like percent, 75-80% of total port area. And this is not my idea, it's Wobbly Wainwright's working. Wayne Wobbly Wright. And also, per advice from Wayne Wobbly Wright, I start simulations in Emot, and I try to get my Mach number to Mach 0.8 here at the exit. And this is to keep, because you've got to keep in mind that the piston is here in the blowdown phase. So if you have a really fat duct and like you lose velocity, and you need velocity to purge the cylinder of spent gases. But anyways, this is the start of my my design process, and I have a short taper here out from the smaller blowdown area and out to the total port area. And then I start designing my whole pipe after that from this total port area dimension. And I'm not going to go into expansion chamber design, but this starting point kind of decides everything else for me when I design the pipe. And here's where my compound error comes into play, because my port doesn't look like this. It looks like this. It's blowdown area only. And the first screw up we did was when I designed the duct exit, and it was meant to be the same area as the blowdown area. So, and that was my intention, but somehow along the way, and whilst I was learning CAD at the same time. This was my first project in CAD, and I think my brain got overloaded and weird stuff happened. So this area actually ended up being the rule of thumb number of 0.75 or 0.8. I can't remember if I even used the correct number. Anyways, this we realized this a while ago, and we fixed it. We enlarged the duct exit to have it be 100% of the blowdown area. So that's good. The problem comes from how the short taper here tapers out to the full window area of the port. And it does. And my header starts off at 27.5 millimeters. But that is the total port area, but it's also just the blowdown area, because my port is missing this bottom section, which every other port has. And this is our compound error, because I should have start designing the pipe with a header starting diameter, taking this imaginary port window into consideration. I should have scaled up my total port area with probably like to 1.25 as a starting point. So this shouldn't really be 27.5, it should be like 30, maybe 31, maybe a little less, but larger. And this has compounded all the way through my pipe. So every diameter here is far too small, and the whole volume of the pipe is far too small. It's not. And the reason I haven't thought of this before is because I just crossed it off the list. I'm confident in my process of designing an expansion chamber, how I start with a starting point and then run a bunch of simulations in Emot and get something that works. So I was confident in this being right, and I haven't given it any thought, but here you go. And also, I think I was fooled in simulations because I was simulating with running nitromethanol, and I was getting high power figures, but probably fooled by the nitro in my simulations, because I haven't got that much experience with simulating with nitro. And but this is our problem. We need to make a new pipe, but we can do some testing with this pipe. The Yasuni R3 Max, I think, might be an R4, but I think it's an R3 Max. Most likely far too fat and most likely far too long, but at least it has a 30mm starting diameter, and this should give us some pointers as to if this is the problem. And even if it doesn't give us any pointers, if it doesn't work at all, it's worthwhile to design a new pipe and build it, because this pipe, even though I thought I designed it to how it should be all along, it's not what I intended. It's not the right dimensions. It's not just because I started off with that one wrong number. So let's see what happens. This actually fits my exhaust adapter thing quite well. It's sloppy. I realize I made a really stupid mistake here, because if I want this to be 32mm outer diameter, well, I'll probably pretty much turn this all the way away again, because this was already 31.3 or something. Back to square one. You've just witnessed the most stupid mistake so far, I think. Maybe ever, and maybe... So this spigot is 31.50, so 31.5 millimeters, and this is 32. So it needs to be 32. And that piece I stuck on there and welded on, I think that was, well, pretty much 32mm ID already. And I welded it on, and then my plan was to turn it down and have the outer diameter be 32mm. And I don't need to explain how that doesn't work. And so that's all that was necessary. There's supposed to be an O-ring here, but I haven't got. I somehow lost the one that did fit the groove, and I haven't got one that does. So, but I think for testing purposes it'll be fine. Okay, assemble and see what happens. I'm gonna set the flat line 15-degree ignition timing map now, so that we're sure we don't blow up anything if it actually works better. Let's add a little more timing just to see what happens, but there's 9.5 horsepower already with at 11,500 RPM for 50cc. That's pretty much idle. So the pipe is far too long and far too fat. We need to make a new pipe. I think this is the solution. Let's raise timing to 18 degrees. I was gonna make a cup of coffee. So this might not come off as great results, or it might not look like great results, but there's a couple of things here making this great results. First of all, 9.5 wheel horsepower through all the gearbox stuff and stuff at 11,500 RPM from 50cc. That's pretty much idle for this engine. So that tells me that things are actually working properly. I think. Second, with 15 degrees of ignition advance, flatline, we made that power. And then I raised timing to 18 degrees flatline. And of course the power band shifted down and we also lost power. So that tells me that it's actually responding to timing in a way it should respond to timing. It actually wants sensible timing numbers at peak power. I'm really confident now that this is our answer. It's the pipe volume. It's that stupid mistake during the design process with and just this starting diameter of the header, and this completely screwed up everything. I think I'm 100% confident now that a proper length pipe with proper dimensions for 50cc and the proper volume will probably get us much closer to what we're looking for. And also the power ends with this long pipe, like I think the tuned length is like 750 millimeters with my exhaust duct and all, which makes it a really low revving pipe, as you saw. And thereby there's like the power band is so short, so the power ends were like 1.5 seconds, and like a 1.5 second run on an inertia dyno doesn't give you proper results. So there's probably even more power. And also EGT was really low because of the really short runs and stuff. And we didn't tune the carb at all and all that stuff. So this tells me this is the solution. This has been the problem all along. I'm confident this has been the problem all along. And I never checked. I never questioned the pipe because it's designed. I designed it like I know it should be designed. But everything was designed from one incorrect number. Gotta get some gas for the welder and start designing this new pipe and weld it up. Next time. See you next time.